Hi, boys and girls. Today I wanted to go over a quick activity about sensory language. Sensory language helps your reader visualize and imagine what is happening in your personal narrative. Our job today is going to be to add some examples of sensory language into our narratives, and I wanted to kind of walk you through that and see what that would look like. So first of all, let's kind of talk about what I mean by sensory language. So sensory language is when the author appeals to your five senses. We have our sense of sight, our sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of sound or hearing, and our sense of touch. So when we think about our sense of sight, that's usually the one that is most easily described in our personal narratives. It's when you want to describe something that you really want your readers to see, and you want to use very clear, precise language. When you're describing what something smells, does it have a good smell, a strong smell? Did it smell like stinky feet? Did it smell like a garden of roses? Use very vivid language to help your readers understand the smell. Taste. When you're eating something, you can describe how something tastes. I know one of you are writing, I think it's Zoe, is writing about a time when she was challenged with Takis. So she could describe how spicy they were, how crunchy they were. And that actually also goes into sound. What sound did it make? The bag crinkled, the crunching of those Takis. How were people talking? If you're including dialogue, you can describe what it sounded like when they were talking. The baby was sobbing. They were screaming. How did it sound? Okay. And then finally, touch. How did something feel? We've talked a lot about texture with our properties of matter. You can apply that also into your personal narrative. You can describe the texture of something to help your reader know exactly how it felt. So knowing that information, I want to show you again my personal narrative, and I want to walk you through how you can complete this document by thinking about what's happening in your narrative. So if you'll remember, my narrative is about a time my friend challenged me to eat a whole bunch of sour gum, a bunch of those crybaby sour gums. So I want to think about, what do I really want my readers to see when I'm describing this? So maybe something that I could do is describe what the gumballs looked like. They were very, very colorful. I very much remember that there were all sorts of colors, and I loved the blue ones because they were the most sour. So maybe under here, under sight, I can include the gumballs looked like a rainbow because there were so many colors. My favorite was the blue because they were the most sour. Another thing that I remember in my challenge, remember he challenged me to eat 10. Another thing that sticks out in my brain is seeing all of those wrappers littered on the floor, on the ground, because I was just like popping those gumballs into my mouth, and I was just throwing the packaging on the floor. So the gumball packages littered the ground. And so that kind of helps you picture that they're just like thrown all over the ground, right? The smell. I don't really remember there being much of a smell. So I'm going to leave that one blank for right now. The taste, though. Oh my goodness. The gumballs were so sour, they made me pucker like I was eating a lemon. They were so tart. That's another word I could use. I'm actually going to make a little note to maybe include that word tart, because that's another thing that I could taste from that, right? But after I got through the sour part, the gum was sweet after the sour powder had dissolved. All right, let's use some more of that science language, right? All right, the sound. if y'all recall, one of my character traits about Thomas was that he was laughing and giggling all of the time. So the whole time, what I'm hearing in the background is Thomas just giggling and laughing and trying to get as many of the gumballs out of the packet, out of the container as he possibly could. So there were two main sounds. Thomas giggling and laughing. And also gumball packages crinkling. Sorry. All right. Those two things are very vivid in my mind. I very much remember those sounds. And that will help my reader hear as well when I add those details into my narrative. And finally, touch. Anything that I could feel. And that includes what it felt like in my mouth. I remember my mouth was full and I was dribbling. This is really gross, but it's true. I was kind of dribbling spit because I had so much sour gum in my mouth. So that's also a visual, right? Can you kind of picture me? Like, it's really gross, but what was happening? So now that I have finished adding the sensory language and some ideas, I'm going to go in and look in my draft and see if there's a place where I can add these details into my draft to help create a better visual for my reader. So if I go back into my draft and I think about, he suggested we sneak the container of gumballs outside. We built our fort. I was nervous, but I listened to Thomas. I never shy away. So I unwrapped them and started stuffing my face. Maybe right here, I'm going to actually enter so I have some space. Here, I am going to add the detail about the gumball packages littering the ground, and also that my favorite was blue. And I'm going to add these in here, and I might have to make some changes, and that's okay. So let's see. So I unwrapped them and started stuffing my face. My favorite was the blue because they were the most sour. The gumball packages littered the ground. Right now, that doesn't really sound very good, but I'm going to leave it just as a reminder that I want to include that sentence in there. We'll come back and revise it at a later date, okay? I also know that I want to include that the gumballs were so sour they made me pucker like I was eating a lemon. Thomas was laughing the whole time. There's some of that sound, right? Laughing and giggling were things he did all the time. Right here, maybe. You know what? No. You know what I should say? Because one of the reasons he was laughing and giggling was because I had my mouth full and had spit dribbling down my face. So that, I think, would be a really good thing to include right here. So it also explains why they made me pucker when I was eating the lemon. All right? So if you'll notice, I'm not necessarily including all of my sensory language, but these were just ideas for me to go back and look into my writing. As I continue to revise, I might come back and look at this. So this is just another tool that we as authors can use to make our writing sound a little bit better. We'll work some more on this afternoon, okay, my friends? Your job now is to pull up your draft and complete a sensory language chart for your writing. I can't wait to see what you do. Thank you, friends.